Hey, hi everybody. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Abe?
I'm good, Dave. Welcome everybody. We're live. It's Wednesday, June 17th. It's 1 p.m. and here we are with the first installment of a virtual talk show called Conversations on the Green. I'm a little bit nervous, Dave. This is our first conversation. How are you feeling?
Very excited. There's a bit of an echo on my end. Yours?
No, I think I'm okay. So I just wanted to say that if you care to make a donation to the Harold Green Jewish Theater Company, you can just click on the link below. Dave?
I just wanted to say, hold on one second.
Yes.
Yep.
Hi, Matt.
David, turn off your other screen, please. The
Okay.
YouTube link. Every YouTube.
My screen's off. There we go. It's our first things happen. Okay, Dave.
There we go.
Good.
Oh my God, that's so much cleaner. Thank you, Abe. See, we are live.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're taking advantage of that. If you want to ask some questions, we'll be open to receiving your questions. And you can just to the right of your screen. If you don't see a box where you can ask questions, there's a link just below. And if you click that link, it'll take you to the YouTube portion of this show, and then you will see a place to write in questions, and we'd love to hear from you, and we'll ask them at the end. But we're so excited for our first guests, two guests. Abe, these are two great gentlemen. They really were instrumental in our success when we did The Whipping Man with Obsidian Theater Company.
Yeah.
Philip Akin, our first guest, directed it, and Sterling Jarvis starred in it. We also did, I'm going to go not in order, but actually with Obsidian just this fall, which Philip directed, and he just won the Toronto Theatre Critics Award for Best Director. And we're so proud of that. And he also directed Driving Miss Daisy for us, and Philip starred in that. Philip
didn't star in that, Dave.
I'm sorry.
That.
Just wanted to make sure we're live and you're paying attention.
Yeah.
Sterling starred in that, and he also starred with his daughter. And his beautiful, talented daughter, Aisha. He did a concert for us. And we're thrilled to have them both with us. Ladies and gentlemen, Sterling Jarvis and Philip Akin.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome.
Such a smooth beginning.
Great to be here.
You're our first, guys. How does that feel?
That's amazing.
It feels great. Sterling has a nice clean background, and mine looks all cluttered. What are you guys doing to me here?
I love the artwork you got back there. So
Yeah, it's all coming with me when I leave. So
there you go. We'll talk about that.
Yeah. So, guys, the best place to start is what have you guys been doing? How you been with COVID? How you been coping?
Well, COVID has been weird because for me, I was on tour, doing Book of Mormon for 2.5 years,
right,
in the States, all through the States, and then on Broadway for almost 2.5 years. And then when it hit, you're thinking, are they going to shut down Broadway? They're going to shut down Broadway, and that's what happened. And so I was there on a visa for work. So that was hard for the show to shut down, and then they also came up to company management said you're going to have to leave the country. Like, what? They said, yeah, immigration just came to us and said you have to, because your visa is for work and you're not working, you have to go back to Canada. So then it's weird coming back and having to isolate, because that's part of the whole COVID thing. But the good thing, is that we're here with our daughter. But it was weird because we're renovating our house to make it, 2 separate apartments. But it's weird having your daughter like a door away, and you can't hug her. You can't, do anything for 2 weeks. And then also just disinfecting everything. It's just a weird time.
The new normal. Yeah.
It's just, but, we're all safe. We're all,
That's the main thing.
That's the main thing. We're not sick. We're not, and you see people, and then I see the numbers in New York,
Yeah.
were so high, and I was just like, oh my God, did I just dodge a bullet?
Yeah. You hope once this breaks, will you head back to New York to pick up where you left off?
We'll see what Broadway wants to do. I don't know what the show wants to do. I don't know, you know, if they offer me a contract. I don't know. You know, that's the hard thing. Everything's up in the air, right? They keep changing the date of opening, you know.
Yeah.
They said, well, we'll open in June. We'll open in July. We'll open in August. We'll open, like, no one knows, really.
Yeah.
But
so the renovation is keeping you a little busy, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, very busy. Very, very busy. So that's a good thing to have, you know.
Cool.
Something
Phil, how have you been keeping?
Well, they haven't punted me out of any countries yet, which is good. And I was doing some Zoom rehearsals down at Shaw, and because I was supposed to be down there doing the play, which obviously it's all been canceled. And we had two people that we brought up from the States to be in Trouble in Mind, and I don't know what they're doing, but they're not going back.
Oh wow!
They're like no. We Chicago, New York, no, we don't want to go there. We're going to just stay in Niagara on the Lake. It's nice. So for me, I mean, you know, I've given up any kind of idea of control or making plans. I find it kind of a very Zen Buddhist time. You can't control anything, so you have to just focus on what you can control. So I can control dinner, and whether I cut the grass or not, and did I empty the dishwasher, and that's all I'm doing. I mean, I'm at Obsidian today because we've got some work to wrap up over the next couple weeks. So, yeah, I'm just taking it beat by beat, and I'm not disinfecting anything, Sterling. No, because I ain't touching nobody. You know, like I'm keeping my distance. I don't ride.
Yes,
you mentioned something. You mentioned about the Zen, which is kind of interesting because when you come to start to think about it and open your awareness and realize that this is a global pandemic and that everybody's going through the same thing, it sort of puts everybody on the same playing field. That maybe there's some reflective consciousness that's going on at the same time. Maybe we'll come out of this a little bit better, a little more aware of things in life, and who knows.
Well, I think that's a great hope, and then I believe people will be people, and about 2 weeks later they'll forget all that and they'll just move on. But what I do find though is a lot of people are going through some tough times with it, you know, psychologically, and from what I figure out is that people want to control things. They want to know answers, like Sterling's saying about when Broadway's this and whatever, and you can't.
Right.
And so the desire to control something is matched by the inability to control anything. And that sets up this dissonance within people. And I think it kind of makes them crazy. It makes us all a little bit crazy. And so I just, like, the biggest highlight of my day, quite honestly, is I go and I choose a really nice tea. I bought lots of tea online, and I choose the tea and how I'm going to prepare it, and I go sit out in the backyard and I have a tea and read a book, and I can do that.
And you're a good cook too, I hear.
Sure. Yes.
You've told me so many times. I'm just reiterating what you told me.
Yeah, I do. Well, and I also have over 100 cookbooks that I cataloged already because I was being really crazy when this all started.
Well, you have been busy. I'd like to take you guys both back to maybe to have our audience hear a little bit about your life and the beginnings to some degree. I know, Sterling, you grew up in Digsby, Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
Yes, and the bustling Oshawa, Ontario, after coming in from Kingston. Was any family members involved in show business at all for either one of you?
For me, my brother, my younger brother, he was Nelly Furtado's bass player and director, and then we had a band together when we were like teenagers. We used to go to I don't know if anybody remembers the Ontario Place Forum.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
But we used to go there. All of my family used to go there every year and you had to sit there, you had to go early, you had to you save spots, and we dreamt of playing on that stage because the stars would come out. It was a really amazing place because the stars would come out for the rehearsals, and you could watch the rehearsals, and they were right there, and they would talk to you, and they're dressed in normal clothes, and you're like, oh my God, these are my heroes, and so that was. My brother and I just kind of looked at each other and went, that's what we want to do. And we formed a band with our cousins, and then we ended up actually playing and opening up for the Daz Band. I don't know if you guys remember.
Right, because you were a rhythm and blues guys. You were a Juno nominee too, weren't you? Before becoming an actor.
Yes, I was nominated twice for Juno, but yeah. So I think that's where my start was in entertainment, knowing what I wanted to do.
What did your parents do?
My mother, she worked odd jobs. She cleaned houses. My father worked at Canada Packers.
Wow.
Which was meat factory, and but they always said to us, do what makes you happy. And that was the biggest freeing thing for us, because we realized we could really do follow our dreams instead of feeling like we have to do this or have to do that. And so, choir in grade school, I played clarinet in the band, in high school. And
music was important.
We had our own band, and that's when.
Right. And Phil, how did you come from Jamaica to Oshawa? I mean, how did you?
Well, yeah, it's one of those ridiculous stories where my father and grandfather were both born in Montreal, so they were Canadian citizens, but they were living back in Jamaica. They got married. My dad got married, but they couldn't come back up to Canada because at those times, if you weren't coming up as nurse's aide or housekeeper or something, you weren't allowed to come into Canada. And then the rules changed, and so my mom and dad came up in -- and my brother and I came up in '54 to Oshawa. My dad was a surveyor. My mom eventually worked as the it was a great fancy title that didn't pay much. It was sort of like a vice president for Ministry for Scripture Press, which was a religious publishing house. Nobody in my family was in entertainment. My mom didn't really think much of lawyers, and so when I was leaving to go to theater school, she asked me if I'd rather be a lawyer than an actor. So that was a bit odd, but yeah, for me, theater, I got into it at both the library because we were big readers, and also at high school. And it was a way, really. We were the only Black family in Oshawa for 10, 12 years,
right?
And acting and being in theater gave me a way to not be threatening and to fit in. So that's how I got into it. Yeah.
That being from, I guess, coming to Oshawa, and I guess also in Digby, that you wasn't, they weren't Black communities that you grew up in. I guess Sterling, this must have been the '60s for you, like early '70s, and
I mean, Digby is where I was born, but my parents had the foresight to look at this small fishing town and move us to Toronto because they realized there wasn't much there for us.
Right.
So we came to Toronto I came to Toronto at a very young age. So I really grew up in Toronto.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I mean, Digby is where we used to go back every summer for our vacations, and we would go back, and then we spent 2 weeks there, and after a week we were like, can we go back?
It's interesting, Philip. You mentioned how you wanted to fit in and not as a young Black man. I'm wondering, what sometimes how we grow up and the experiences we have, the resilience we get, informs us in our life as an artist, as well as the career choices. What is it growing up that you think you took that fueled you in your craft?
I think there was a huge amount of rage and anger and bitterness. It was, I have a friend of mine who lives in the Bronx, and she's got a couple of biracial kids. And she's often the only white person at school, whatever. And she said to me the other day, she said, I don't know when my little boy is going to stop being cute and become a threat.
Mm.
And that's how you grew up. Except, in the 50s, you were treated like crap. And so it just, I think it distorts you, and it shapes you in a way, and you then have a lot to deal with as you grow older. Funnily enough, yesterday I got an email from a girl that I dated in 1964, and she was like, you were my first real crush. And I kind of go, that's great, because I remember really crushing on this girl too. I also kind of remember that I think her parents left Oshawa because they didn't want us to get any closer. Right. So it's funny all these years later, out of the blue, to get an email and kind of go, oh, hey, how are you? What have you been doing since 1964?
How did your parents keep you safe though, or just held you? I mean, and all was going on. I mean, if you were bullied or just stuff going on when you went home, how did they justify that to you?
That's really tricky. I mean, my mom was a very religious woman, and so she always gave counsel based on the Bible, which for me, I think, led me to totally disbelieve the Bible, because they kept saying one thing and you get treated another way. And I think it's a bit much to be asking 6, 7-year-old boys to have the forbearance. You just know that you got laughed at unmercifully for wearing Stanfield long underwear in the middle of the winter, and it didn't fit. And so to this day, I've never worn long underwear again. Wow. Right? And that's from 1954, 55. So this stuff stays with you.
Yeah.
Right. Stu, did you have those experiences like that growing up? And
I remember being at school, in grade school, and being called the N-word every day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was by one particular guy. And I'd have to walk by his house to go to my house to go home. And he would yell it out of his window down at me and my brother as we walked home. And people have asked me, have you ever had a fight? I said, that's the only time I ever fought anyone, because I just had enough. And I said, why don't you come down here and say that to me? And he came down. It was the middle of the winter too. He came down, and I'm proud to say you know what? I did well on his front porch, and his father opened the door and said, "What are you doing?" And I went, "Oh my God, he's going to come after me!" And he was yelling at his son.
Wow.
And pulled him back into the house. So it was more in grade school. I think if you're lucky enough to be, a musician or an athlete, which I was both of when I was in high school, people tend to look at you differently. And so I was, I didn't have to deal with so much of that in high school, because, I was, captain of the football team, captain of the basketball team. So people, you know what I mean? Like but I'd see it happen to other people, and I'd just be like, I don't understand why you're treating somebody like that. I just don't get it, And so and then when I went on tour, I was waiting for it. I looked at our tour dates and I went, we're going way down south, baby. We're going to Mississippi and Tennessee. And I've seen so many movies and heard so many stories. And I was waiting for it. And it luckily never happened to me. People actually treated me very, very differently. I don't know if it's because I was lucky or because I golf a lot. So people, on golf courses are generally polite. It happened to me one time at a golf course where I left I know I'm rambling on. This is a long story.
No, it's all right.
Some golf courses, when you rent a cart, you have to your driver's license. And I don't like playing on those courses because most times I will forget to pick up my driver's license and drive home.
Oh, right.
And I called the course and I said, listen, I left my driver's license there. Can I just come back and get it? Can you check? And she was really annoyed. And I said, my name is Sterling Jarvis. Can you check and see? And she checked and she goes, okay, there's a license that says Sterling Jarvis here. Okay, I'm going to come back and I'm going to come and get it. And then when I came in, she gave me all of this attitude. And I was like, I'm Sterling Jarvis. I called you on the phone. I'm coming for my driver's license. And she goes, what kind of driver's license? She's holding it. And she's looking at my picture and me standing there. And I'm like, and she's like, well, what kind of driver's license is this? Is it a Canadian or American? I was like, look at the picture and look at me. Give me my driver's license, please.
Wow.
I was like, wow, like what was that? That was the only experience I had when I went, was that just racism? I think I just experienced it. That's what it was,
It's so odd because, I mean, to have that informed when you're so young, what that does, because Dave and I, we grew up in first 18 years in the Jewish suburbs. And
I thought you were going to say the 1800s. I was like,
well, there's that too.
There's that too.
I remember very distinctly to what you're saying, being 13, because I went from a Jewish neighborhood to a Jewish school.
That's right.
And then someone said, "Oh, you're the minority." I said, "What? I thought everyone was Jewish."
Right.
I remember it hit me. It was like, oh my God, there's a whole other world out there.
Yeah.
And it was a very distinct panic, slight shame, and processing that I had to go through to understand that we're a minority. But speaking of Jewish, there's a Jewish connection for both of you guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know.
I know Philip is part of the alums. If you want to share with us your Jewish,
this is one of those wonderful, maybe apocryphal stories, but it's part of the Akin Gervin family history. That on my mother's side, her family the family name was Delavante, and that was the name of Spanish Jews who had moved to Jamaica. So when I'm being a bit of a guy, I turn around and say, yeah, I'm Black, Scottish, and Jewish, so I've got melanin, I've had a bris, and I wear a kilt. A little too much information, but it's a good joke. It's a good joke.
I love that. Well, I wore a kilt and we were Rockies, but I love that. I miss those times. You've told those stories when we've been in rehearsal, Philip.
Yeah.
And I miss those. We would go to lunch together, and I would be amazed by those stories. I mean, I have done so many Jewish weddings, and sung so many horrors. And the thing is, being in a band, like I said, you do all kinds of weddings, and there are weddings where people don't. Very few, but people don't want to get up and dance. It's all about the And at the first Jewish wedding I did, I went, oh my God. Like, as soon as they introduced the bride and the groom, everybody's up, everybody's dancing. I'm going, this is what it's supposed to be. I remember one of my favorites was a Jewish, South African Jewish wedding. So there were there were Black people, there were white people, they were playing African. We played African music. We played, Hebrew music we played. It was just like, I go, this is what the world should be like everybody just having a great time all together.
Yeah, I remember the first day of rehearsal with Whipping Man, and all of a sudden we're going along, and I see, oh, there's a bunch of Hebrew here. I guess we'll have to get somebody. And Sterling just pops out like, I'm like, what? have you been like practicing or whatever? And he said, no. It's I know how, and I was so amazed. I think I still count that as one of the most unexpected things ever in a rehearsal, was you just ripping it and letting it go, man.
I remember the look on your face, and I was like, oh, he doesn't know my history.
No.
And I remember doing one wedding. It was a very Orthodox Jewish wedding, where the women are separated from the men, and there's a rabbi standing on the stage, and he's watching everything we do. Actually, the woman I was singing with had to leave the stage because her arms were exposed in the dress she was wearing.
Right.
She was sweater. I said, "Wow, this guy's really serious," and he's standing there like this, and watching every word I say, and then he came over to me after we finished all the horror. And he started speaking to me in Hebrew, and I was like, "I'm sorry, I don't speak Hebrew." And he goes, "I thought maybe you had studied in Israel or something. Your dialect is really good, and I just thought that maybe you had studied somewhere in Israel." And it was one of the best compliments I've ever had.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's amazing.
I said, "Sorry, I can't answer you. I don't know what you just said to me."
Well, I think you make a fabulous tevya.
Yeah.
What's that?
I think you make a fabulous tevya.
Make a fabulous Devia.
Yes.
That's for our production of Fiddler Pon the Roof.
Fiddler
Pon the Roof, the West Indian version.
You can't retire. You can't retire, Philip. We got to do that one.
I don't want to retire, Sterling. I just leaving this job. It's the rest of the world is kind of like retiring me, not me.
I got you.
But no, man, I'll anytime you want, I will do Fiddler Pon the Roof. It'll be great. A little reggae beat on the whole horror thing.
Sterling, Motown Megan Boys for Life.
Oh my God, we've done so many shows together.
There you go.
Cool.
They helped us with our bar mitzvah. Yeah.
Yes.
Olivia, hey.
Oh, Olivia.
Olivia worked. She was assistant directing with us on Driving Miss Daisy.
That's right. That's right.
Matt, Chiron on the bottom saying, if anybody wants to make a donation to the Harold Green Company, just click the link below, and a donation would be wonderful. And here is Sterling Jarvis and Sherry Flett in Driving Miss Daisy.
It was so wonderful to watch.
That's a great show.
And that mustache. I remember, I think I told Philip this. I said, because I had to grow my hair for this show.
Right.
And I said, I think in our final bows, I'm going to have a razor, like an electric razor. I'm going to be shaving my head off.
And there's David playing.
Yes. My one recollection is in rehearsal, having to do these quick changes and changing in the wrong costume.
Oh, really?
No, another costume.
But it was really interesting. Like, it was amazing to have to age so quickly.
Yeah.
And you go off stage and you come back and you're 12 years older. You go off stage, you come back, you're 20 years older. Like, it was such an amazing experience for me as an actor to figure all of that out, or try to figure it out.
I can recognize.
And to learn, simple little things like, taking the white paint and painting your eyebrows with a toothbrush and your hair, and it makes it look like your hair, instead of a wig on. Like, all of these things that you didn't think you were going to learn.
Hey, Philip, I have a question about I know you were an actor for many years, and I know you're Oh, Olivia, learned so much during that process. Grateful to both of you. All my love. That's nice. Thanks, Olivia. Is there, when you're directing, I know sometimes when I'm directing a show like, you know, the Bar Mitzvah Boy with two Jews, Ralph, you know, Ralph Small and I forget what's her name, Dave. I forget the young lady.
Hannah.
Hannah Miller. There's a shorthand because you share history, a legacy of some kind, or a familial thing. Is there something? Is there a shorthand when directing someone, directing Sterling, someone black, that maybe that because you, is there a shorthand with that, an understanding that you could just mention something or something comes across, or?
Well, you know, it can work some ways. Yeah, I mean, you know, but not everybody has the same history and the same shorthand. And but yeah, I mean, you can be clear and you can broach topics in a different way.
Right.
So there was a great picture of Sherry Flett there.
Yeah.
Who I love. But I was directing Sherry in 1837 down at the Shaw Festival, and I changed one of the scenes to a rap scene, and I said the choreography had to be like Rhythm Nation by Janet Jackson.
Right.
And Sherry Flett had never seen Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation.
Oh, right.
So Sterling, if you can just imagine the first time I made the stage manager pull it up on their computer, and a number of these actors from the Shaw Festival who'd been there for 20, 25 years, I stood there watching them watch Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation for the very first time.
Wow.
Right? It was just like mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So I can say that to Sterling, and we know exactly what we're talking about and how it hit. So there's that. But there's, you know, just going to Whipping Man, there's a couple of things that really stand out to me. One is that column, the wheel that we, sorry, not Whipping Man, Driving Miss Daisy. Sorry about that, Matt. The wheel and the gear shift and all of that. And getting that part in from the States, and then Sterling having to work all the levers. It was like one of those really cool things.
Yeah.
And the other really cool thing that I still love about that show was the idea in the garden when she's at the cemetery, putting down the stones where we had placed it, and then them staying there for the rest of the show. And at the last fade out, it fades out on Sherry, out on Sterling, and the last thing to fade out is on the stones.
Our audiences loved that moment.
You know?
I remember that our audiences were enthralled with that, putting the stone on, because that wasn't in the script.
No, not at all.
And you added that. It was beautiful touch.
But it's those kinds of things, you know, that I kind of go, oh, we found something new and something different. So yes, there's a great shorthand with Sterling, but I think to be a good director, you've got to know where your weaknesses and the holes in your shorthand are, and that's what you've got to learn to pull together with your cast.
Right.
I have to tell you, and it's not just because Philip is here.
Yes, it is, but that's all right.
I just love being directed by him, because I tell people all the time, when you have a director who is an actor, they understand you, and that's the shorthand too. It's not only because we're black, it's because we're both actors. And he could say something to me like, I don't know if you remember, you know, Philip, he would just say one word or one phrase to me, like, "Where are you driving?" And I'd be like, that's right. I didn't think about that. I have to think of the route that I'm driving. So that I'm not just going like this. I'm actually making turns, you know, and he would say to me, "Does this car have a rear view mirror?" I'd be like, "Oh my God, you're brilliant." Shut up, leave me alone. Okay. But it would make you think. You just go, yeah, of course it like, when you're driving, you're looking in the mirror, you're looking here, you're looking left, you're not just
right.
You know what I mean? So make it look real, and then the people would actually think you're actually driving. Like all of those little things, little touches, you know. And then I would kind of add things in, you know, like, you know, with the key. When I got older, I, you know, had a hard time figuring out which key, how to get it, you know. And what Phil would also do is go, I'd ask him a question, he'd go, "Let's try it." let's just see if it works. Let's, go ahead. There was always freedom to do whatever you wanted to do. And then he would say, well, that looks like this, or that looks like that. So let's try this, or, but it was always challenging you as an actor, but not in an aggressive way at all. It's just sort of making you go, have you thought about this?
It's also too. It's and I've got to call Sean Mulcahy's name here, because he's a great designer, and I guess he's done all three of those shows, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he has.
He's an amazing designer, and I remember when he showed me the design for Driving Miss Daisy, I just went, oh, my blocking's done.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm good. And so that's been one of the things that's made it really such a joy working with you guys is pulling together a really good crew of people that are in tune with each other and all driving towards the same goal.
I got to say, what Sterling said, I agree with 200%. I was lucky enough to direct some shows, and I'm the Philip Akin School of Directing. Whatever you hired me, it's true about intention. I remember saying just very quickly, should we do this a little quicker? Quicker? What do you mean quicker? You have to get there fast. Maybe you're running out of time. Intention was everything, and the sense of discovery and the inspiration you give an actor, remarkable. But I also wanted to mention, because you're leaving being artistic director only at the end of this month, and you've put together some amazing mentorship programs that will be your legacy with writing, with correct me if I'm wrong, with directing.
Yeah.
And this has been so an amazing, and there's probably others as well, and you've won awards for what you've done, helping young African Canadian performers and writers and directors to have their career flourish. If you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's one of the things I really strongly believe is you wouldn't know it now because so much theater has moved online, but I don't really call that theater.
Right.
But theater in its original sense is what I call a mayfly art. And the mayfly, born in the morning, dead at night, it's lived its whole life in one day. And theater is an ephemeral art. It's a mayfly art. And so I often turn around to people and I say, can you name me the top 5 Broadway stars in 1920? And it's like the big crickets, right? It's nobody knows.
Yeah.
And to our office. I'm sorry. You can take me out if you want.
There was a fire starting somewhere.
It sounds like a fire. So it's an ephemeral art, right? And your legacy really is less in the productions, right, in the formal production, but more in how you've worked with people and what they take forward. So if I have been blessed enough to be able to impart something to you two guys in terms of acting and stuff, you go on and you impart it to other people, you show it, you develop it, you grow it, you take it your own way. That's legacy.
Yeah.
People drive legacy, not necessarily the production by itself. So the fact that I can turn around and look at people who, okay, here's Whipping Man.
Yes.
Right? It's an IA house. Unless you have students who come in, they could work in the space. IA would let them work in the space. And so for the install of Whipping Man, the production students of the Ryerson Theatre School, Ray Salverda, I think, was the PM on that show. He said they don't have a show. He brought them in so that they could do the set install. Then one of the other people came up to me and said, you see that girl there, that black girl there? You need to know her. She's great. And I went up to her and I said, "Hi, I'm Philip, blah, blah, blah." She said, "My name's Rachel Forbes. And I said, when you graduate, come and see me." She was part of the Mentor Apprentice unit. She worked with Astrid Jansen, stayed working with Astrid for a couple of years, branched out on our own. I took her down to Shaw to do a show with me. Rachel's one of the busiest designers in the country.
Fantastic.
99% of that is because of her and her talent. But that little 1% that I was able to help give her a little boost in the right time and the right place, that's legacy. That's something that lives on past any production.
Can I talk about legacy with you and me, Philip? Because working with you, like, you know, when you talk about those little things, think about the little things. Think about where you're driving, I put that into every other show I did, and especially into the Book of Mormon. When I walk into this, what is supposed to be my hut, and they have all of these pictures, the mother and the daughter, the mother has died, and all of the little prop, and I put a memory into each one of them. And that's what you taught me. Like, why is that there? Why is that there? What does that picture mean? What does it mean to you? So when I enter into a scene, I come in with all of this and information and history instead of just walking on stage and doing a scene.
Yeah.
And it really informs you and it helps you. And then you get compliments. Like I like compliments when people go, "I see you as a father. I can see it. I see you as this person. I see it." When we did Driving Miss Daisy, people would say, I remember I think we did a talk back or something where someone said, who's the man that played the old man? And I said, "That was me." And they were, no. So those are the biggest compliments to me, but it's because of Philip's direction. We make things believable to an audience. Like, it's the little things. It's the subtle little thing, how you walk.
Well, we've been very blessed to have both of you.
Wow.
Over the last 13 seasons, we really have. We really have been graced with amazing directors, but I think Philip, you're I think 3 times with us is pretty. I think the most we've worked with one director, and Sterling, you've done so much for us too. So it just, this was an amazing show, actually. I mean, it was amazing for the time and stuff. It was a glorious piece, and Phil, you did a great job with that. That was a
but here's the thing. If you look at Whipping Man and Actually, 2 shows that are powerful and really challenging, and I think challenging to your audience in the best possible way.
Right.
And I have to say, I'd sit there at intermission or after the show at Actually, and people would come up and be so complimentary, and you could tell that this wasn't what they expected, and yet they were there for it and they stuck by it. I still tell the story of a gentleman who came up to me at intermission of Whipping Man, and it was such a challenging premise for him. And he came up to me and he says, I don't know how I feel about this black guy speaking Hebrew. I don't know, but I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
And he went for his interview, and I was like, man, that is the best ever.
Yes.
Right? Because it
was at its best. Absolutely.
It challenged him, and yet he was still going to stick to it. He was still going to be there for the show. And that, to me, is the best of theater, right? Is when we can do that. But there's a lot of companies who are not going down that road. They're not taking those chances with their audience.
Our audience love that journey. Our audiences really love that experience and love that journey. And I mean, we're not here to educate, but I mean, they just love taking that ride and those circuitous routes that you set them on. So I mean, I think our audiences love that type of stuff. Philip, you were an actor. How did you transition to being a director? Was it a stroke of fate? Or did you make that conscious choice to say, you know what, I'm ready to go into another part of my life?
I became a director because I said yes. I was a lot of people's second and third choice. I never once turned around and said, oh, I'm going to be a director. I should learn about that. It would be like, oh, so-and-so said no. Do you want to do it? I said, yeah. And they said, well, these two people didn't want to do the show. So do you want to do it? And I said, yeah. And so I find this really curious because I've never been an assistant director. I've never taken a directing class or course. I've never gone to university. So I'm always at odds when people ask me to teach stuff because I just go, well, I find myself teaching people how to think and how to question and nothing about whatever the nuts and bolts of directing is. I challenge people's way of looking at the world and say, work on that for a few years and then we'll talk.
Yeah, that's so interesting because, wow, Philip, I'm learning that we're even closer than I thought we were. Because same thing, I didn't go to theater school. I didn't, but I've taught, master classes. And there are, times when I went, you're calling me a master? I don't know. I would love to teach the class and talk to young kids, but I talk to them more about life and the choices they would make in a scene, and they go, I never learned that in theater school. No one taught me that. It was like, I remember teaching my daughter, who was also an actress, and she said, Dad, I have to do a scene where I have lost a baby, but I obviously have never lost a baby. And I said, well, it's up to you whether you want to go to this place or not, because as actors, you have to be placed. And I said, you had a dog and he died, right? And she said, yes. I go, so that's your baby. And she did the scene. I said, just think about him. And she, started bawling. And I said, there it is. So you have to be willing to make those choices. But when I said that to a class, they were like, I never thought of it that way. I said, people, there were kids that would say to me, how do I get rid of the nerves? How do I, how do you, I'm so nervous. And I said, you have to care less. And they're like, what? Care less? This is my life.
Care less.
And I said, you have to care less. It's not life or death. If you were a brain surgeon and you made a mistake, someone might die. But if you were an actor and you made a mistake, you just keep moving on and keep, and most people won't even know that you made that mistake. But if you're making it so important and so, then it freezes you. Cool. And you can't be creative. You can't be who you are. Just let it go. And then it's like, especially in live theater, you just have to let it go and keep moving.
And sometimes you make that mistake and it opens up a wonderful new world.
Yeah, that's right.
And sometimes it really doesn't.
Right.
But I love your philosophy on acting, and I always have. But just before we go on to the question and answer from the audience, Sterling, Philip, I don't know if you can sing, but I know Sterling can, and I know I can't. June 17th is a special day. It's our first conversation on the green, but it's also Avery Saltzman's birthday.
Oh.
Happy birthday, Abe. Happy birthday
to you. Thank you, guys.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday,
Avery. Thank you.
Happy birthday to you.
Guys, this is...
There he goes.
Guys, this is what 45 looks like.
Yes.
You don't look.
Thank you, guys. This is a fantastic way to spend my birthday. It really is. It's great. As we come to sort of an end to this, we only have I just want to take this opportunity. Can we talk about what's happening in the climate of the world today? I just love to get you guys' opinions, how you feel, and what's the craziness and the
transformative.
This
is the conscious raising of it, and whether what will stick, what won't, and your thoughts on what's going on.
It's
it's a
big
loaded
thing.
question. We want to get to
Yeah, it's a big thing, right? And
Yeah.
and the truth is, I think, at least for me, that there's very little new that's happening, really, and the life of growing up black and living that life in all of its complexities really hasn't changed. I mean, so I can hope for change, and we'll see what happens as time goes on. But yeah, I'm having a bit of deja vu on all of this.
Yeah. I like I said, having been in the States for like 5 years, I remember the election, and it just was like, come on, man, really? Because as a community, my family, we always grew up thinking of the United States as like our big brother. And then to see all of this going on. And I remember being on tour and having a friend say to me, because they used to rent cars for us. And I'd go driving and play golf. I'd go driving and play golf. And she would say to me, you make sure you keep your hands in 10 and 2, right? And I go, what are you talking about? Because if you get pulled over, and she started giving me the talk that people talk about giving their black sons. And I was like, what do you, I would get this comment from people all the time. You're so Canadian. You're so, like you just don't understand where you are. And I went, and now you see all these things that are happening and people getting shot, and we just go, that could have been me.
Mm-hmm.
That could have been me. And I just, so same as Phil, I have hope. I've never seen these kind of demonstrations last for so long. All through not only the United States but through the world. So hopefully, the world is changing and people are waking up and going, yeah, there's a lot of things we have to fix. We have to change.
Do you have these discussions with Aisha, your daughter? What's the?
Eerily enough, I think it's different for male black men.
Yeah.
I don't think black women are seen as a threat like black men are. I don't know why. And we've had these talks, and she understands. But it's just a weird thing. It's just a weird thing to see. You go play on a golf course in the States, and it still says Westbrook Plantation Golf Course. And you're like, let's take the word plantation off. Then I start thinking of the history, and I'm looking at the trees, and I'm going, oh my God, how many black men were hung from the trees? How many had to run across these rivers? How many, I forget. Yeah. And then I realized, oh my God, there's a history here that is very different.
Yeah. Sterling, my daughter had a boy on March 2nd. And I've seen him a little bit, I can't we're all physically distancing and all of that kind of stuff. But when all of this really started to happen, she wrote this amazing impassioned post where she's just saying, this is my son. How do I deal with this, right? Like how do I teach him how to, and you go, yeah, that's it. I mean, and it's the same talk that my mother had to give me.
Yep.
And so in a funny kind of way, it's women having to give their sons a talk and somehow hoping that enough of it sticks that you can get it alive, right?
Yeah, and I never knew. Every time I ever went out when I was, a teenager, go to a party or whatever, and I'd come home at 2:00 in the morning, and my mother would be sitting there.
Yeah.
And I go, Mom, why are you not asleep? I had to make sure you came home. I never understood that until this, and I went, that's why. That's And she's scared the whole time because she doesn't know what's going to happen to me.
You know, when I was a teenager, I had like a big fro, right?
Yeah,
And right, you too? You have a fro?
I did.
And I had an afro pick, and it had a wooden handle, and it had sort of thin metal rods were the pick, and that you'd use that. But because when this is hippie time, and you go around to coffee houses and stuff, and so the cops would always be on you, and so you couldn't carry a knife or anything like that because they'd arrest you and all that. But I took my afro comb and I sharpened the ends of it. So it was sort of like a sharpened afro pick that stayed in my hair, and nobody ever touched my afro pick. But that was my defense, and I would that's how I'd hitchhike. All my high school years, me and this afro pick. That was my defense.
I had the same one with. Did yours have the wood handle?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the same.
And it had kind of like faux burnt African designs on it.
Yes, yeah.
Matt is texting us from behind us saying there is a question coming from the audience. Matt,
I don't know why I've lost the picture now, guys.
The Black Lives Movement has me confronting my own subconscious biases. In the DMD, Daisy insists that she's not prejudiced, while there are examples of subliminal racism. Any thoughts on this?
I would say that, and I mean this is rarely a good answer, but I would say
There we go.
Is that me?
What was that?
There you go.
Okay. I would say, Olivia, that it's also about time and perspective. What was considered racist in the 50s and what wasn't considered racist in the 50s is like totally different today. Yeah. And so I think a lot of times when you're doing historical plays, there's a tendency to bring your 2020 aesthetic to it. And I think there's some value in that, but I also think there's value in understanding how and why people reacted the way they did in those actual times. Yeah, there's stuff that Daisy would say and do, and expectations that she has that, yeah, you would just deal with. I mean, my mom always used to say, you need to eat a peck of dirt before you die. And nobody knows what a peck is anymore because we're, but you go to a market, you see those bushel baskets full of apples. So 2.5 bushel baskets is a peck. That's a lot of dirt that you have to eat. So that's how I was raised. You got to eat 2.5 bushels of dirt to survive. And so in the time of Driving Miss Daisy, you were still eating that dirt. It was just what was acceptable and how little power you had.
Right.
And nowadays there's hopefully there's more power, but yeah, you still do it. You still have to eat that peck of dirt.
It's true. It's interesting because I remember I would talk to my father and I'd say, I remember watching, Obama's inauguration and both of my parents crying. And I said, why are you guys crying? They go, because I never thought we'd see this day.
Absolutely.
And then I said to my father, I said, did you ever experience a lot of racism? Did you? And he said, yep. But he never, ever said anything to us, ever. I never knew.
Yeah.
He just swallowed it because he knew he needed the job. He had to feed his family. He just took it.
Right.
That's his peck, like you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
He just went, well, they're going to be the way they're going to be, and I can't change them, so I'm just going to swallow it. I'm going to take my check and go home. And I'm just like, oh my God, like.
Wow,
that's a lot of strength, man. A lot of strength.
Yeah, what a story. I was happy to meet your parents after the fight.
Yeah.
Part of the journey for all of us on the planet is empathy and understanding where people come from. And thank you both for sharing your stories with us. They were amazing. You're both such intelligent, talented, wonderful people. So thank you for that. But we like to end our show with a little lightning round that we
Oh,
put
gosh.
together.
Oh no.
Very
So,
quick.
one or two word answers only, guys. But before we go to the lightning round, I just want to say thank you, everybody who's watching, for joining us. Next Wednesday is, thank you, Susan. Next Wednesday is Colin Mockery and Deb McGrath. So an hour of comedy. Thank you, Olivia. And that's same next Wednesday, 24th at 1 p.m. So here we go with our lightning round. Here we go, Dave.
Starting with you, Sterling first. What do you put on your latkes? Applesauce or sour cream?
Applesauce.
Philip?
Oh, applesauce. Yeah.
Okay. On your bagel and cream cheese, lock or nothing? Sterling.
Butter.
Lox.
So,
Favorite Jewish comedian?
Oh, I don't know if Howie Mandel, is he Jewish?
yeah,
Yeah. With a name like Mandel, yes. Lenny Bruce.
Lenny Bruce. Beautiful.
wow.
Sterling, your favorite actor?
Philip Akin.
Beautiful. Philip, your favorite actor? Well,
Sterling Jarvis.
there
We
you
know where
go.
that was going.
Sterling.
Okay. Your favorite film?
Right, well, Driving Miss Daisy is one of my favorite. So I'd have to.
Oh,
Philip?
one that can-
A Japanese film called Departures.
Sterling, pineapple on pizza? Yes or no?
No.
Philip?
No.
You have a tattoo. Sterling.
Me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't have a tattoo. No.
Philip.
No.
Okay. And then last question. If you had one word for the future of humanity, what would that one word be?
Peace.
Lovely.
Duck.
Duck.
Yeah.
You
Well,
don't know what's coming.
On that note, thank you to our audience. Thank you for tuning in. And gents, first of all, Philip, congratulations, Mazel Tov, and
Thank you.
What a career as artistic director.
Yes,
Many more years as a director, and we can't wait to have you back as a director.
and
Well,
Sterling, we can't wait to have you back on our stage again as an actor or whatever. And you guys have been part of our 13 seasons, and we're very grateful to both of you for your humanity and for your talent. So thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.
All right.
You bet.
I
Okay.
want to thank you all for all the opportunities you've given me.
Thank you. See you.